After losing back-to-back games against Tottenham and Brighton before the international break, Man City returned to winning ways last weekend as they secured a 3-0 victory over rivals Man United in the Premier League, courtesy of goals from Phil Foden, a first half goal from Phil Foden, and a brace from Erling Haaland in the second half. And we were talking before this match, Stephen, about the importance of it from a Man City perspective and how important it was for City to not lose, go 3 games losing in a row. And in the end, after watching City ease to victory on Sunday, how impressed were you with the performance and what were the main things that stood out for you from that City win?
We spoke last week, and I was quite apprehensive about this game because the run of fixtures City have got coming up, and I'll just remind myself of them. But I know we've got Arsenal coming up as well, and obviously the derby meant a lot. We've got Napoli midweek, Arsenal next weekend. Um, it's a bunch of games where it could have been if we'd lost this game, it could have easily imagine City losing to Napoli and Arsenal as well. That still could happen, but the point I was making is that all of a sudden you could be losing 5, 6 games in a row, and that would have been crushing. So it felt to me that this game was a must-win. It's weird to say that so early on, but given the Brighton and Spurs results, we had to win this game. United are in dire straits right now, and losing to United, given everything that's going on with them and where we are with the rebuild and so on, I think it would have been a real hammer blow to Manchester City. So this to me was just win it. And thankfully, we won it playing pretty well. We weren't perfect, and I'm sure we'll break that down a little bit more soon. But City were the better side, and they had more quality. And for me, the most important thing was the hunger was there, the fight was there, the body language was excellent. The players clearly wanted it. We did like a little bit of quality at times, which sounds weird when we won 3-0 because we were still a little bit too sloppy for my liking. But the desire was there, and the urge for that win, the want was there. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt City could have won by a couple more. I think we could have had 4 or 5 goals. Maybe they could have scored one as well for not for a couple of good saves from Donnarumma. But I don't think like if it had finished 5-1, I think that would have been a very fair scoreline because I think City towards the second half anyway were starting to get through United quite easily. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it was a must win. I think City will take a lot from that. The big players stepped up. There's loads more to do on a team level, but individually, I think the players gave it their all, and I think there was a lot to like, if it's not perfect. I think yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and one of those big players who did step up for City was Phil Foden. How pleased were you to see him sort of fit and firing in a City shirt again? It's been a while, hasn't it?
To me, like I think watching the City side over the past year or so, we've seen a sort of gradual decline in technical ability in the team, and that's not because there hasn't got quality there. It's because we've been in transition, and a lot of people like Bernardo, De Bruyne, and Gundogan, they were getting older, and they're not quite as smooth as they used to be. And Phil, of course, was last season was poor. He had a write off of a season. We're being totally honest. There were still some goals and moments, but given the heights of 12 months earlier, he was non-existent last year. But seeing Phil come back into the side yesterday, he reminded me of just how good City can be at their best because he was buttery smooth. Like he's so smooth with the ball. Like you couldn't get off him. He used it so intelligently, and he played excitedly for me like a leader. It's not always something you associate with Phil Foden, but he was getting people up and he was telling them where to go, and he was playing like someone who was taking responsibility for the side. Haaland was doing very similar as well. And these lads, they're still reasonably young, but they're both incredibly experienced players now. We've won an awful lot. They've been playing football for an awful long time. Both have been playing for several years, pushing a decade already, despite being early to mid 20s. So I enjoyed it. I thought Phil's first start of the season, we missed him. His movement, his awareness and sense of space, obviously his goal threat as well. But the way that he just kept it simple and moved the ball forward so naturally for us, like. Yeah, I think we've been missing Phil Foden, and I think he was a reminder of the technical quality that City are at their best. Because City at their best do not give the ball away; they scrap as well, and I think Foden actually had the most recoveries in the game as well. But they don't give the ball away, and we're guilty of that a lot at the moment. But Phil Foden was, to me, an example of the standard where we should be, and it was a big performance from a man who clearly hates United as much as I do as a City fan. Which is, and I like that in a derby. You want players who want to win it, who want to do it with the shirt and the badge, and that's the impression I got from Phil Foden.
Yeah, there's nothing better than seeing a local lad from City, scoring against United and
Loved it.
and in that win. And his first, I think it was his first Premier League goal for City since January as well. So it was a needed goal and a brilliant header directed into the
Yeah.
far corner from him, and great performance all round, much needed as well. And what have you made of Erling Haaland starts this season as well? 5 goals in just 4 Premier League games, at least 2 clear of anyone else in the league already. Would you argue that Haaland is maybe Man City's most important player at the moment, considering the number of goals that he's scoring for Pep Guardiola's side? Where do you think he ranks among City's other star names in the squad?
Right now, he's taking the team and leading it. There was some rumors. I didn't fully see this, but my friend was telling me that there was. You might have read about this, Ollie, but there was some suggestions that he'd called the team meeting or something like that. Did you read those reports?
What was that, sorry?
That he called a team meeting to suggest that we
Ah,
need to
okay.
get. I sort of my mate read that on, but
Yeah.
either way, if that's not necessarily true, I can imagine he's definitely be speaking to the team, and you can see a man who clearly wants to revel in that responsibility he's been given. He's part of the leadership group, which means he'll be captain based on a certain hierarchy of leaders, but he will be captain at some point this season, and you can tell. He's demanding more from his colleagues, and you can't do that unless you demand more from yourself. Haaland had a good season last year, but by his own standards, it was probably a slight dip as well. But this season, he's come absolutely flying out the box. Of course, midweek, 5 goals for Norway. I'll take credit for that. I was in Norway drinking a Haaland smoothie, so I'll take credit for that. But yeah, obviously that would have done a wonder for his confidence. And the fact he's come out so far this season, 5 goals in 4 games in a City side that hasn't been, fully functional either. He was absolutely immense against United. He was everywhere. The most clearances of any player in the team as well, like winning headers in his own box, linking up play, pressing aggressively, and of course the quality of his finishes. There was so much conviction and energy and focus in his performance. I absolutely loved it. And when you look at the City team yesterday, there's arguably 3 or 4 world class players in that side. Rodri definitely is one, but he's not there yet in terms of his fitness. Donnarumma is a world class player. Haaland's a world class player. Then you could argue people like Diaz on form, maybe. Not he's not been there recently. Guardiola on form, maybe, and Foden on form, maybe, but they haven't always been there. But you needed big performances from your big players to win it, and City got that. And Haaland, of course, was the epitome of that. Foden did it. Donnarumma did it as well. And if you have the big players like Haaland and Foden and whatever turn up, you're going to win most games by sheer quality, and that's what the difference was for me. Is that Haaland played like a leader, and he led from by example. Foden did, and Donnarumma did, and yeah, I thought Haaland was fantastic, and Guardiola was very effusive with his praise afterwards. He said he might be even better. He said or something like that. Where he said he seems like he's even better than the Haaland he had previously, and I think a lot of it's mentally. I think Haaland absolutely has something to prove right now. He clearly is reveling in the responsibility that he's been given, and I think it suits him. I think he's 25 years old now, I think, Haaland, and he's not a kid anymore. He's an established elite level striker. And and I think if you look at, he's not the same player as Cristiano Ronaldo, but he was around that mid-20s when people like him, they start to take responsibility because they realize they are the best in the side. They are one of the best. And they start becoming leaders by their own sheer brilliance, and they know that they are a step above their team. And I think Haaland has gone from young striker to now I'm a superstar, man. I can lead this team, and I am the one who demands more from others in the way that a lot of great players do. And I think that's the next step of development for Haaland, in my opinion. And we all know his quality, but I think the ultimate Haaland is one that actually comes out and leads from the front, and people fear, and he becomes a bit of a bully in a good way. And I think you'll also enjoy Donnarumma being there because Donnarumma is a beast. You've got a 6'6" guy in goal and a 6'5" guy at the top, and him coming out afterwards saying he probably could have got man of the match because you thought he was immense. I think you need players like that with that big attitude, that big aura, for want of a better phrase, that huge personality. And I think he feeds off that, and I don't think it's a coincidence yesterday that, Haaland was up for it, but Donnarumma looks passionate as well. He's a passionate player and he's massive. And Phil was back in the team, he's passionate at Derby as well. And I think it all fed into each other. And I think Haaland led by example. And to me, that is really good because Haaland last season he scored goals, but he cut a lonely figure at times. And I think having Haaland so involved, it's going to be good for the whole side because he is an unmistakable force of nature at his very best, and we need to keep getting that out of him. Keep encouraging him to be aggressive. Keep getting him to bang heads together. I think that's the best version of Haaland. The one who's been a bit arrogant. I think he is. I want him to be more. But don't people like Drogba. I want him to be more like that. I want him to be more physical, and I want him to be more of a bully. And I want him to tell his teammates to get their act together because De Bruyne is gone now, and I'm sure De Bruyne would have done it previously. And um, Gundogan's gone now, and I'm sure he would have done it previously. Kyle Walker would have done it previously. It's Haaland now. It's Haaland's job, and I think the signs are he wants it.
Yeah, and you mentioned Donnarumma there. Man City fans were eager to see how he would perform on his Premier League debut against United after signing on deadline day from PSG. He kept a clean sheet, made a superb save to deny Brian Mbeumo in the second half, and he enjoyed a pretty solid debut overall. What did you make of his performance?
Yeah, really, really encouraging. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend he had about 10 saves to make, but he had two or three and they were good saves. One where I don't know if it was given offside in the end, but Sesko went through and
Mm.
goal and he closed it down. That was a good save. There was a bit where Mbeumo as well went through and goal, and I mean, he was offside, but he skied it. And I genuinely believe the presence of Donnarumma made a difference. When you've got a guy who's 6'6" and probably about 6'6" wide too, and his wingspan, and he's wearing a high vis jacket of a kit as well, he must look massive in that goal. I was sat in the second tier, and he looked so big from even up there. Like I know you were there as well. He's just a big
Yeah,
guy,
he's
isn't he?
massive. He's huge. Yeah,
He's huge, and
I mean
like
that's the
Trafford's tall.
difference. Yeah, with him and Edison, I think the presence of his size is much different,
It's
isn't it?
intimidating, and
Yeah,
and when you know he's Donnarumma too. Look, if Erling Haaland's through in goal, he doesn't care who's in goal because he's Erling Haaland. I don't know if it's the same for Sesko. I don't know if it's the same with Wemmer because they don't have that. They're not Erling Haaland who's absolutely fearless to anyone. I do think the average striker is going to go as Donnarumma. I think they're going to question themselves instinctively because it's human nature. And I think presence and that like success follows people like Donnarumma around for a reason. They're talented, but they're also leaders. And like Donnarumma wins, he wins it all, for a reason because he's obviously a special keeper. But the concerns about the possession based stuff, they're there, they're prevalent. And like I understand that the fact that Diaz was taking goal kicks, I'd be amazed if we're still doing that in a few months. Um, I think that was City trying to ease him in and not putting too much pressure into taking it. I think the plan long term would be pass that a little bit more. But the one thing it's undeniable is like the presence he has, and he was even better clearing crosses than I thought he was going to be as well. Like he punched so much out, and he was winning everything from corners and so on. Like he's absolutely huge, and it feels so reductive to say he's massive, but he is. He's like an absolute specimen. He's so big, and he just felt reassuring. And I do not want to throw shade at Edison because I think he's one of the all-time great Premier League goalkeepers, and I love him. I truly don't think he gets that shot from Mbeumo. I just don't think he does. Mainly because Donnarumma's 4 or 5 inches taller and he's naturally a better shot stopper. And I think Edison doesn't have the reach for that. And I don't think he's quite as sharp, to move as Donnarumma is. And yes, you could argue maybe we would have kept the ball better, so maybe some less chances conceded and so on. There's very different ways you can approach that. But I think the fact is, Donnarumma is an elite level shot stopper, and he makes saves like that, which affect the momentum of the game. If that goes in, that one from Buemo where he rasped it towards the far corner, it was a great strike. Where City are right now, that could easily end up being 2-2, 3-2 United because we are not mentally strong right now. But that was a big moment which got, a reaction from the crowd and the players running up to him, giving, chest bumps and all that kind of stuff. The guy, he struck me immediately, and I'm sure you felt the same in the ground. He has a presence to him. He feels like a superstar, and it feels weird to talk about that mattering because it's not necessarily a footballing ability. But I think it is. I think some people are just winners, and I think they do get better out their teammates because, for one, he demands more. His organisation is really good, and he's obviously a cracking goalkeeper, but he's also a winner. And I think Haaland feeds off that, and I think his teammates Diaz seem to enjoy it as well, notably. So yeah, I was really impressed. There'll be more tests and more challenges. I think teams will press us better than United did, who were pretty poor at that. I'm expecting Arsenal will be a vastly different test of us, and they'll obviously they're set piece FC. They're so good at it, and I think when teams press us more, we'll see what Donnarumma looks like then. But I think as he is as a goalkeeper, we can't really deny. He's a Galactico signing. He's that level. He's a superstar, and I thought it was a really promising debut.